Hello and happy St. Patrick's Day. It's a real pleasure to be here. It's been a while, and I'm always kind of thinking about you all. Always trying to get back here, but I've always had something or other happening in the background that I needed to address and attend. So I begging your forgiveness. Please forgive me. I'm trying to get back on track. Did I say once a week? I meant once a month. That's what I actually meant. Sorry about that. That being said, today's little podcast is about healing. Um, I actually, prior to even becoming a personal trainer, I have been attuned as a Reiki healer since 1990. And that has been an incredible journey. I really embraced it and really loved it. I've gone through the gamut of things, working with children who are dying, cancer patients, people who want to get pregnant, other people who just want to feel well in their minds and bodies, get over depression, all of those things. And I've really enjoyed the process. Um, but I have to say that, my thought process from when I was attuned in 1990 to this day is completely different. It is a completely different animal. And I want to say primarily because the experiences that I had as a Reiki healer, as a Reiki practitioner, were fantastic. They were great. They were wonderful experiences. However, and it fulfilled something in me. Let's face it. When you become a healer or you do something that's truly selfless, let's just say, oh, you like my little pin? Isn't that cute? I only wear these things, this blouse and these colors on St. Patrick's Day. I don't think I look particularly good in green. I think Kermit looks good in green. But anyway, let's just say that my experiences as a Reiki practitioner over the years, as wonderful as they were, and it really did help me fulfill something inside myself to help people in that selfless way, in that giving manner. It felt so fulfilling, but it was a little disconcerting when people kept coming back. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what do you mean they kept coming back? That's good news. They love you. They want to come. They want more. But for me, it was actually a little disconcerting, only because I felt as though something had happened in that initial healing that maybe they perhaps missed or didn't quite understand in themselves that they could heal themselves. Um, and this kept coming up time and time again. I would reiterate, you have the power to do this. And I was debating, am I being irresponsible and not attending to them right away the second, third, and eighth time? And trying to get them to see how wonderful and powerful they were as human beings. But they kept coming back, and I decided that not only should I be focusing on the health and fitness arena, where Reiki could be very effective in terms of musculature and muscular imbalance or injuries or other anomalies in the body that happen when you're trying to get fit and healthy. But what I ended up realizing was that in my personal training practice, I was actually trying to help people heal. And very often when you're at that level of understanding of what healing is all about, you're working with people on a physical level that are trusting you and counting on you to help them, quote unquote, lose weight or get fit or, run the Ironman or whatever have you have in mind. But what they're also asking, and I've said this before in other podcasts, I don't know if you're listening now again, but there's something else going on inevitably. My personal training clients are asking me, how can I feel more self-confident? How can I feel more loved? How can I communicate better? How can I adjust my personality so that I can get what I want and still have a love life? How can I change me to get what I want and to still feel grounded and safe at the end of the day? These were all the things that people were really asking me for help for, not necessarily to lose weight or get fit. That was a byproduct. That wasn't the end result. They wanted to know how to feel great again inside their own skins. And now I see, after this break I've taken professionally in order to kind of rebirth something new in myself, I see it happening all over again, is that Our culture right now is going through a really difficult time. If it's not COVID, it's the threat of war across the country, all over the world. If it's not that, then we're sacrificing our earth for garbage. If it's not that, then we're, you know, there's catastrophe after catastrophe happening weather-wise. So people are scared. People are nervous and they're scared. And there's a lot of illnesses popping up as a result of that. And it is not necessarily due in part because your physical body is breaking down, it's because your mental body is breaking down. And I'm going to clarify that in a moment. The nature of healing in and of itself, if you've ever had a healing experience, you recognize that there are certain symptoms that disappear on contact. You recognize that you feel differently, that you no longer worry about this thing or that thing that plagued you in the past. All of a sudden, the healing happens and your relief is complete. Now, if you haven't experienced healing in that way, you may be thinking things like painlessness is healing, and yet that is not healing. You could take any medication to get rid of a symptom, but that's not necessarily healing. Am I right? Just, feel free to ask any questions about healing as I move along here. The essence of healing is the ability to be so familiar with who you are and know yourself inside and out that you know something is not right. Okay. Something is not gelling. There's nothing worse than feeling as though there's some little corner of a memory or a belief or a habit that is stemmed in an emotion that is not serving you any longer. And we need our emotions, no doubt about it. It's so important to be able to communicate and to be able to access other people's opinions and get involved with, your sense of personality and developing and growing your strengths. That's important. That's all important. I'm not saying it's not. What I'm saying is the emotions in our bodies that we retain. You can get angry. You can get angry. You can get viciously angry. But it's those moments that you're able to let it go, literally, that healing happens. It's those moments that you're able to pull yourself up out of a depression and enjoy your family and sunshine and artwork and beauty in your life. That's a healing. It's when you look at anxiety in the mirror and you say, you know what? This is not my reality today. This is not me today. Today, I have no fear. I'm going to go forward, and I'm going to go forward with courageous effort and kindness and compassion in my heart, with the love of God right behind me to send into the earth, to send into his people, and send it to yourself. That is healing. So, and I want to say that healing is more of a spiritual thing than it is a physical thing. I have helped people get off of diabetes medication, high blood pressure medication, high cholesterol medication. I've helped people alleviate pain in their bodies, in their knees, and their backs, and their hips, and their arms, and their shoulders. I've helped people reconfigure their mind and body in such a way that they feel happier daily. They're not depressed all the time. These are things that, I've assisted, but the true healing happens somewhere between that person's psyche and their God. I give a talk more recently, and I'm doing it more for the churches and rec centers and libraries than anything else, called Your Soul is in Your Cells. And this is the reality of it. Your soul is in your cells, and as such, your whole being is perfect. What happens to it is a result of our own beliefs. Now, I know that you've probably heard some of this before, but I will say it's different than if you were to look up the configuration of a cell online and to draw it out for yourself in the area of pain that you're experiencing. What would that cell look like? Would it look like it's light filled? like Jesus actually lives in that cell, or would it look differently to you? And this is what I'm saying. If you can raise your own awareness of where you are in your life, how you're experiencing your mind and body, and how you think about how connected you are with Source or God, that is the predicator for your ultimate healing and well being. Not, oh, I fell off my bike. Not, I caught this cold or COVID. I caught, some sort of a disease. I have cancer. That's not the thing you need to worry about. The thing you need to worry about are the root causes, the emotional memories attached to the belief systems that have created an imbalance in those cells. And we all have our favorite areas, right? That hold pain and illness. Some of us, it's in our throats. We catch a cold, it's in our throats. Or some of us, it's in our lungs. Catch a cold, it's in our lungs. Or for some of us, it's a stomach ailment, or it's a nagging, persistent back pain, or perhaps, your feet ache at the end of the day. There's something for everyone. Everyone has their favorite organ. Everyone has their favorite joint complex that's going to get banged up and ruined. So the reality of those things, though, they are resulting from those initial traumatic, perhaps even abusive experiences you had as children. And now your body is starting to actually manifest your beliefs. Ding, 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 ding. There's a I call it a pain timeline in my first book, or I haven't written the second one entirely yet, but I'm getting there. In my first book, I wrote about the pain timeline, that there's a consecutive amount of days, weeks, and months that you have to hold an idea, a memory, an emotion that is toxic to your cells in order for it to actually manifest this illness, this pain, this disease. So the longer you hold these negative emotions, and you may even say to yourself, I'm happy today. I don't have anything. There's no problems with me today. There's nothing wrong with me today. But the reality is, if you haven't done that emotional archaeology, I want to call it, if you haven't done that work, and I don't mean, and here's another difference. When I say emotional archaeology, I don't mean going to a therapist, 4 times a month or twice a week for 18 weeks. That's not what I'm talking about. The emotional archaeology I'm talking about is really so deeply rooted in your subconscious mind that you seriously cannot access it, usually on your own. I've created the superconscious conversations that help people to access, that information on a subconscious level. So if you do need that kind of assistance or that help, I'd be happy to help you out. I do free consultations. I'm giving free readings for this month, probably into next month, to just help people who can't afford a reading right now. Maybe they're in between jobs. Maybe they don't want to get vaccinated, but they had to quit their job in order to do this and not get vaccinated. So I'm offering free readings and consultations for healing, as well as spiritual consultations. The talk that I have, the soul within your cells, your soul is in your cells, is also free. So if you know of someone who's interested in having a free talk given at their space, whether it's a church or a library or rec center, let me know that too. I'd be happy to help you out. I live in Connecticut, obviously, but this is all in an effort to raise awareness, raise consciousness about healing and the true nature of healing. It is not so much a physical thing, like I said. It is not a pain relief thing entirely, like I said. It is really finding your personal truth and acknowledging how you got there. That perhaps, you had this traumatic thing happen to you and you chose to hold on to the trauma because that's a safe haven for you. Maybe you chose to hold on to the trauma because it meant that you had a little bit more control over your emotional status. You'd rather be in a state of fear than the unknown, What is it like to not know how you feel on a given day? That might be scarier than actually just feeling fear. And I've had those people. I've worked with those people. Um, this is the problem I have with regular traditional, and I'm not saying psychologists or therapists are horrible. I'm just saying that there's a time and a place for everything. And if you're looking for long-term healing, the time and the place might not be with a traditional therapy session. It might be with something more deeply rooted into your subconscious. Right now, I don't know anyone else who provides that particular service. God bless you if you do. But there's also a book by Dr. Gary Flint that I read that started me down on that path of acknowledging the subconscious emotions and the conversations that were going on behind the scenes, behind all the sunshine and pretty flowers and butterflies that are happening on a day-to-day basis, which we still love, appreciate, enjoy. It's just that we are also going to acknowledge those painful parts of our lives that we need to release in a healthy and safe way. So that being said, you may ask yourself, well, what can I do on my own? What is healing for me? And I would like you to do that. Maybe have a little homework. So maybe you should write down a few things that you feel would represent healing for you. How do you feel about healing? What does that mean to you? Does it mean being pain-free without medications? Does it mean a reversal of cellular regeneration in the wrong way? Does it mean you simply just feel better on a day-to-day basis? Or, you feel like you're more stable on your feet after a bunionectomy. I don't know what healing means to you. You have to decide what that is. But in any case, that is going to predicate what you do with the rest of this homework assignment, okay? I want you to reflect, not relive associated traumas. Like, let's say, for instance, and my mother, I will just give you an example. My mother had horrendous feet. She had osteoarthritis in both her feet. She also had reflex sympathetic dystrophy, which meant that her feet were constantly in a state of pain all the time, always in pain, regardless of how carefully she cared for and tended to her feet. They were always in pain. So she was on serious, pain medications. Now, this is a woman who was born into a really honestly loving family. It was not a loving family. They were very, very loving. But she caught rheumatic fever when she was 9, and then she was in a sanitarium out on Long Island for 3 years. I think she said she saw her parents maybe once a year, and she began to forget what they looked like. This is traumatic. This is an extremely traumatic experience. Why would she hold that in her feet? Because we grow up through our bodies. We grow up from the feet upward. And I've said this before. So your feet represent your youth. Her knees also were not great. Okay. So you imagine somewhere in her mind, she felt very much like a very small, insignificant child going into this sanitarium to quote unquote heal, which was exactly the opposite of what was going on. And then it started to affect the early teen years. So the teen years start to happen between 12 and 18. So that represents the lowest part of the knee up through the hips, up through the thighs, into the hips. At the hip juncture, you're starting to grow into your 20s. And then you create the sacral complex, which creates all of the information that you've gained about relationships and how to function in relationships, how to be healthy in relationships, how to communicate. That represents a sacral complex. Now, people who've had really bad relationships, the sacral complex starts to break down, become weak. That affects the hips. The hips start becoming arthritic, etc. So anyway, for my mom, the trauma happened in her feet and her knees, right between these ages of 9 and 12. So, for her, and I wish I had this information while she was still alive, but for her, it would have been helpful to go back And she said she acknowledged to a certain extent that her parents did the right thing. They did what they had to do. They were both working full time. They had no money for care for her essentially at home. So they had to send her away inexpensively, far less money to send her away and have others care for her while they worked. And they still paid for her stay at the sanitarium. So that being said, if she had done some of the emotional archaeology that I learned about later in life, she may have survived a lot healthier, a lot happier, with less pain and obviously more control over her condition than she had ever experienced before. She felt very much that most of the control that she had over her experience with pain and diseases, and believe me, that was just two of them, right? Arthritic knees um, and osteoarthritis in the feet and reflex sympathetic dystrophy. That all, you know, I think would have been alleviated by her own truth, speaking her own truth. And this is why I say, reflect on those events that affected you negatively in your past. Reflect on them. Do not relive them. Don't buy into the emotion all over again. You're just going to exasperate the situation you've already created as pain and suffering in your body. So you want to just reflect what happened. So, for instance, my mother may reflect that she was sent away at the age of 9 to a sanitarium that seemingly well-intentioned nuns that didn't cook very well, let's just say. But they were well-intentioned and they tried their best. But I also think there were a couple of kind of mean-spirited nuns that were not as kind as the others. So if she had sat back and reflected, this thing happened to me, but ultimately, in direct contrast to what my doctor said would happen to me, that I wouldn't have, they told her that she wouldn't have any children. She couldn't expect to get up and run around and walk around as she used to, and that she would not live long. Well, my mother, the second she got out of the sanitarium, started playing stickball and acting like a kid again instead of being the 13-year-old she was becoming. A little more demure and not so much into games and toys. She was totally into games and toys and running around the streets of Manhattan, having a good time. The other thing is she had 4 children. I'm the fourth. I'm the fourth of 4 children, and so that went out the window. And the final thing that was astonishing is she did live to 74, I believe. And I do believe all of this, which leads me to my next piece of information about healing. All of this happened, I sincerely believe, because of my mother's love affair with my father. It was really, truly remarkable in this day and age to see that kind of care and attention, compassion, intimacy, cherishing each other each and every day. I believe that is truly what helped my mother heal, mostly, from the age of 16, or he knew her, I guess she was younger, but from the age of 16 right through to 74. So I do believe that reflecting, not reliving your past history, with a sense of your own truth, what you felt in that moment, is going to be far more effective for you than popping a couple of pills. Also, reintroducing love in your life. And now this brings me to the love piece. Okay. So my mother was a very selfless person. She fed the entire neighborhood. There was no child that was going to go unfed or homeless. Not one was abandoned. Everyone was welcome at my house. And I even had a childhood friend, who emulated her. And she works for a bank now in upstate New York. And she wins award after award after award for her volunteer efforts. And she actually invited my sister and myself to one of her award dinners to memorialize my mother. So that's the kind of woman she was. And it really did hit me very, very strongly that a lot of people that I had worked with as a Reiki practitioner lacked a sense of belonging, a sense of love, that sense of compassion that they had always known and we're brought up to expect in relationships, but we're lacking somewhere. So just be aware of um, those types of feelings of maybe lack somewhere. If it's not in love, it might be, a lack of understanding, a lack of communication, a lack of vision for your relationship. It might be a lack of true intimacy, or it might be a lack of confidence in that relationship. So look at your significant relationships, and are you replicating the things that you experienced in your youth now in your adult life? So that brings me to, you know, the last point, which I'm trying to keep it brief today, half hour. That's not so bad. Come on. Uh, is love. So you again might have to do a little bit of homework and decide what means love to you. And I want you to forget about every book you ever read. I want you to forget about what people tell you or what love looks like on television or in movies and podcasts. I want you to think about what love is to you. What sense of love do you derive from different actions, from words, from people? What's that sense of love that you experience? What is that? What does it look like? So I want you to find and express ways to love yourself. And this is the tricky part because many of us tend to, I want to say, belittle the impact of doing things like drinking alcohol or maybe imbibing in way too much. And I say imbibing because I want to associate the two. Notice how I'm associating imbibing too many carbohydrates or sugars, or perhaps there's a behavior, a different addictive behavior that's preventing you from really truly loving yourself. So now the last part of the homework is to find a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen and figure out what you can do for yourself that is truly loving, that is not of the nature of addiction, that doesn't feed you comfort foods as a crutch, that doesn't rely on alcohol to take off the edge. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because you understand that addiction is a whole other problem outside of physical pain and trauma, and that too may be represented by physical pain and trauma. Perhaps you are addicted to physical pain and or trauma, and that is yet another set of circumstances that require a special set of healing. Because I did realize that at certain points in my life growing up, my mother had so many ailments and issues that perhaps she was getting more attention and that love and compassion from us from being so beat up in so many ways. And the list goes on and on. Instead of like feeling healthy and whole and an active part of her life. Sometimes I worried that might be true for her as well. So it really takes an open eye, an open mind, and maybe some reflection of your past history and how you responded to it. Getting into a car accident when you're 6, yeah, that's a lot of trauma for a 6-year-old. How do you address that? How do you nail that down now? How do you work with it? And in some cases, working with toddler trauma is harder than the trauma you may have experienced at 15 or 19 or 20 because it happened later in your life. So it's a little fresher in your mind. And for some people, it's repetitive trauma, during their infancy and in their toddler years and their preteens as well as teenage years. It could be represented by any of those age periods, but it may take a little while to go back and address those things emotion by emotion. And when you hit the root of your truth, when you hit the root of your truth, which is this sign right here, right there, truth, ding. When you hit the root of your truth and you speak it out and you're speaking it to your mind and your body and you say the truth, whatever it is, let's say, for instance, you have horrible hip pain The truth of the matter is, I'm deeply uncomfortable in blank relationship. Left is female relationships, right is male relationships. When you speak that truth and you say, I'm angry about this relationship, or I feel uncomfortable, or there's something that's missing in my life in this relationship and it's affecting my hips, then your cells start to move in the right direction. Then they become lighter, more translucent, more full of light, more joy, more happiness because it's being heard finally. All the stuff that you thought you needed to bury in order to maintain status quo now is now up and open for grabs for the universe to come in and move in and heal. So that's healing in a nutshell. Did I miss anything? I'm trying to remember what I just said. But this is the problem, is that we all need to be reminded of these things periodically. And I will say that I think the loss of your memory is probably the most devastating thing that can happen to a human mind body connection, because then you have no reference point. You have no way to fix what happened in the past. You don't know about it, but you just know you're in pain. And that's the dilemma. So, diseases like Alzheimer's. I know my father started losing some of his cognitive abilities and memory abilities, although he played Scrabble and he did crosswords daily. He claimed that kept his mind active. He did start to lose it a little bit, very, very towards the very, very end. It wasn't throughout his senior years, but you know, those things can only go so far, and then you do start to lose your memory. So please take every step and every actionable step that you can take right now to improve your memory in the future. And that does include abstaining from things like sugar and alcohol and too many carbohydrates. You want to keep your body lean and healthy so you can move and re-educate your mind periodically. So those are the things that I think are most important when it comes to healing and acknowledging that the process is probably, more than likely, very, very different than any medical professional would have you believe right now. And that's a whole other, let's say, ball of wax that we will build and wax at another time, because today's positive impact for mind and body is over. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to include my website in the chat. If you are intrigued by anything that was said today, would like to follow, or comment on anything I've said today, you can also follow me at Nicole's MBM on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And I would be happy to help you negotiate your personal healing journey at any time. If you feel the need to reach out for a free session, just let me know. I'm not new to this. I've been doing this for 30 years and happy to help out. So that's Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, if I spelt that wrong. But thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time. Love and enjoy your mind and body. Speak blessings into that part that heals and ask it for the truth, okay? Enjoy, and I will see you soon, maybe in another month. I don't know how this goes. I'm just trying to get a grip on my schedule lately. All right, take care. Bye.